Becoming a teacher is something I never expected myself to do, and I kind of stumbled into the field of education by accident. During my undergraduate career at UCLA, I really didn't know what I wanted to do after, and I switched my major from pre-med to undecided. I was lost and confused and didn't know which direction my life was headed. I certainly never thought that I'd end up being a teacher. One day during class, a boy sat down next to me and changed my life forever when he suggested that I apply to the Disability Studies minor. Without a second thought, I went out on a whim and I applied to the minor. After I was accepted to the Disability Studies minor, I also changed my major to sociology and started thinking a little bit more about education. I became intensely passionate about disability studies, but I still didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. I started to really do some deep reflective practices and think about what I was passionate about in life. I had discovered already that I wasn't passionate about medicine, but then what was I passionate about? What did I want to do for the rest of my life? And that's when it dawned on me. Everything that I was involved in, all of the clubs and organizations that I was a part of, they all revolved around tutoring and mentoring the children in my community in Los Angeles. And I realized that maybe teaching was something that I wanted to do. After studying disability studies at UCLA, I really knew that I wanted to be a special education teacher. And now looking back, I know that becoming a special education teacher is my calling and my God-given purpose. Nothing in life has made me feel so fulfilled and has utilized my strengths and talents to such great extents. I think God gives us all certain things, like, for example, patience and resiliency are two things that I think are God-given talents to me, and those are very useful and necessary talents to have in the field of special education. Through my experience in education so far, I've experienced a lot of connection and community with my colleagues and students by building meaningful relationships with each and every one of them. With my colleagues, we share a lot of values, interests, and passions, and we have a lot of those things in common because we're all educators. We all have that underlying desire to serve and to teach and to work with kids. We also share some of the same lived experiences, and we struggle together on a daily basis, which creates a bond between us. I think when you struggle with people and you can understand each other's challenges that you face, it really does create a bond and a friendship between you, and that's what builds a community, is just having that bond and that commonality that we can all come together and we care about the same things and we're going to help each other through the struggles that we face together. As for my students, my purpose is in serving them, and to do this I must know them and understand them on a very personal level. I don't think that we should be very disconnected from our students, and being connected to them, I think we do make a community with them. We start to instill some of the values and some of the morals that we have, and we share with them the love that we have for them and the love that the Lord has given us to give to them. One thing that I've learned in my experience in special education so far is the importance of resiliency. Being an educator can be very difficult and even disheartening at times, but it is vital to keep on persevering through the struggles so that we can best serve our students. I think especially in special education, we face a lot of challenges because we have to do a lot of thinking on our feet. Almost nothing that we do goes as planned, and we have to be just ready to roll with the punches and be able to change our lessons on the spot. We have to be able to manage behaviors on the spot. And a lot of times at the end of the day, we're tired. We've faced a lot of challenges and struggles, and we've had to overcome them throughout the day, and it can get very tiring. I think that's where this importance of connection and community comes into play. If I didn't have the support, and if I didn't have such a community with my colleagues, I think my job would be a lot more difficult, because at the end of the day, they're the people that help me through these struggles because they understand them on such a personal level. They're living them with me, and because of this same lived experience, we can help each other. We understand the pain and the suffering and just the desire to get through and to make the change. You know, if we have a student that's struggling in a certain area and we just can't get through to them, and it's so frustrating for us because all we want to do is help that student, the colleagues around us are all going to jump in, and we're going to start brainstorming and bouncing ideas off of one another because we all share that same desire to just make a change, a positive change, and make a difference in that student's life to make things better. And I think that's the beautiful thing about working in education, is just being surrounded by all of these people that share that same intense passion for instilling knowledge in students. Aside from this connection and community, though, in order to be a very resilient teacher, I've found that reflective practice is extremely important because it helps me focus on my strengths rather than my weaknesses. And that's something that we've talked about a lot in this class so far. But when I used to reflect on my practices, I used to always think about, well, what went wrong and what do I need to improve in the future? But after learning about some of the strengths that I have and some of the valuable abilities that I bring to the table, I think my reflective practices have changed a lot in that I'm focusing now on what went right. If I'm doing something really great in one area that's helping me in my lessons and helping me make a difference and provide the best education for my students, how can I bring that into other lessons? And how can I expand that across other students? How can I use my strengths to make the greatest possible impact? And I think that's making a huge difference because I'm building myself up in strong areas, making myself even stronger, rather than focusing on weak areas that might not ever become one of my top strengths. And I think a lot of this too, just honestly for me, comes down to faith. When I'm going through a struggle and I know I need to be resilient and I know I need to push through, I rely on God because I have to believe that He has a greater plan and that the struggles are really going to create something beautiful in the end. And at the end of the day, resiliency to me is a learning process. You have to be able and willing to learn through the struggles, through the challenges, in order to be extremely successful in the end. Because we do learn from our mistakes and we learn from the challenges that we face. And they help us become better in the end. And maybe next time we won't make those same mistakes. And so I think just being able to rely on God has made me a much more resilient teacher, because even when I feel as though things are out of my hands, I leave it up to Him and I fall back on Him and I let Him support me and I let Him be my community. In terms of other beliefs, though, aside from faith, there weren't any real strong cultural beliefs in my life that brought me into education. I wasn't deeply passionate about any injustices that I had seen in my upbringing. However, being in the field now, I see so many injustices to students with disabilities. It just makes me even more passionate about making a positive change here, because I think they are so much more capable than what society believes them to be. And for me, my biggest goal here is to create a very equitable education for my students with disabilities and just provide them with the tools that they need to be just as successful as their typical peers, because I believe that's what they can be. My experience here at APU has really changed my educational philosophy, because it's really brought me more in touch with my Christianity, and it's really helped me be more faithful and more loving in my work. I used to be a little bit more disconnected, I guess you could say, with my students, and thinking of it just in professional terms, student and teacher relationship. And now with all the discussions we've had at APU about loving our students and doing God's work, it's really brought me to believe that I need to have a more connected relationship with my students and build a very strong community in my classroom. And over the past year that I've been at APU, I've seen very positive results because of these close connections that I'm making and this beautiful, loving community that I'm making in my classroom. And so I really thank APU for that, and I just feel so blessed to be receiving my education here. And I hope that, bringing this